Hey, welcome back. I'm Carissa and I am in the middle of my Master Gardener's training. I'm putting together these videos just to give you a summary of what I've been learning so far. So I'm sort of combining a few different topics here. We learned about insects, entomology, we learned about pathology, which is diseases. We've learned about integrated pest management and all these different things, and I'm sort of combining it into this one sort of quick video just to get sort of the basics on all of those topics. So today's topic is pests and disease. And of course we know pests can come in all different shapes and sizes. Today we'll be focusing on pests as in diseases and insects and not mammals or anything with a vertebrate. That'll be a whole nother topic. So like all of the sessions, this session was very informative, but the presenter was very humorous and engaging, and that really helped us to sort of absorb all the information, which I really appreciated. He is a professional in the industry of plant health, so he has tons of experience, and it was a very helpful sort of session. We were presented with a lot of images where we had to diagnose ourselves, and we were encouraged to play detective, and that's what I'll be talking a lot about today. Just being a detective, sort of observing all of the different signs and symptoms and the environment that you're in will really help you to diagnose and identify what the problem is so you can remedy it. So why? Why are we even interested in pests and disease? So pests can prevent the proper growth and production of a crop, and I think we all are familiar with this problem. Also, diseases can spread quickly and result in rapid and widespread destruction. So both of these things can be very destructive and harmful in our gardens. Both are a nuisance and can be frustrating to the gardener who is unaware how to manage these threats. And I just want to say off the bat, our goal is not to create a sterile environment. If you're thinking about your house plants and what you have in your home, we don't have any of the predatory insects or birds coming in to help us manage. So our homes are very different than what we'll allow outside. I just want to be clear from the beginning, we are not eradicating anything, but rather partnering with nature. There's already a process out there that is naturally managing a lot of the pests that we have in our gardens already, but just sort of partnering with that and keeping that in mind. So the first step in diagnosing or identifying the problem in your plant is deciding what's causing the stress on your plant, right? Without knowing what, we can't really treat the problem. There are two categories within this, abiotic and biotic. Abiotic meaning the adverse extremes in the environment, such as nutrient deficiency, prolonged water stress, and air pollution. So if you want to think about it like this, abiotic is a non-living problem. It is in the environment, probably usually human caused. Not to blame anybody, but sometimes we are the problem. And then there is biotic, and this is caused by a living organism, whether that is a disease or pathogen or an insect. Prevention is a huge part of this topic. Just maintaining a healthy garden will go a long ways in the overall health of your garden. So starting with a realistic expectation, there's no way in fully eradicating all of these pests. And I think that gives us a lot of relief, or it should, realizing that a lot of the bugs that are in our gardens are actually needed to provide a food source for birds, or just to create that sort of full life cycle and ecosystem in our yards. And eradicating one pest is not a great idea. It's like I said, it's a food source, it's part of the cycle, and just being realistic that there is no benefit to eradicating all of these pests is a good idea. Observation is key. Going in your garden, we all love going in our gardens, but going in our gardens and giving it a thorough inspection often, really looking underneath leaves, looking at the color of our leaves, looking at the growth, all of that is going to be key in sort of catching things before they get out of hand. So observe your garden often and thoroughly and close up. Get to know your common nutrient deficiency signs, common pests, and diseases. So that's the three sort of main ones we're going to be talking about. Deficiency signs of nutrient deficiencies. Get to know, what chlorosis looks like. Get to know what a bug bite looks like on your leaf, right? Get to know what certain diseases that are common in your area, maybe powdery mildew before it sort of takes over your whole plant. Maybe notice it on just the tiny little bit of the leaf. So just getting to know just the most common in our area is going to be key in really staying on top of it early before it takes over. Some more preventative measures are starting with healthy plants, right? First of all, buying a plant that is healthy, right? If it's already struggling, it's going to be more susceptible to disease and pest pressure, but also planting it where it needs to grow. If it requires a little bit more sun and it's shaded, it's going to be lacking what it needs in order to be healthy, and again, makes it more susceptible to pressure. Again, observing often. Get in your garden, look under leaves, look closely at your plants and really understand what's going on. Remove dead and diseased plant tissues and materials early, right? A quick prune will probably eradicate a lot of the problem early on instead of removing an entire plant. Crop rotation. If there is a root pathogen that you are dealing with, or a root disease that is very common in your area, or maybe you've struggled with, knowing the life cycle of that specific disease, if it's a 1 year or a 4-year cycle, and really understanding what your crop rotation in your garden looks like. Introducing beneficial plants, even alyssum, sweet alyssum is such a beneficial plant, and it brings in a really good amount of predatory insects that will help you manage the problem. So just understanding beneficial plants and their place in your garden. Consider your planting times versus feeding schedules. So if you know a specific pest that is doing enormous amounts of feeding, it's in its growing period, is going to be coming out the week you want to plant your tomatoes. Maybe pushing it a week later will really help you to understand, right? So it's all about empowering ourselves just to be a little bit more knowledgeable about the things around us, and understanding the different life cycles, feeding schedules, and the timing of our planting is key in preventing a lot of these problems. So again, this is a call to action. No one person can sort of give you all the information you need for your specific environment. We really need to do our due diligence and sort of seek out the information needed about pests in our areas, beneficials in our areas, predatory insects, plants that can help us manage some of these issues, and really understanding what their life cycles are and what they're feeding on specifically at that time is going to be key in managing these problems. And just to remind ourselves that the vast majority, 95% of insects are benign or beneficial. So benign meaning they're neutral, they're not causing or hurting anything. And then also they're beneficial. So 95%, the majority of the bugs you see out there are helpful or neutral, right? So that 5%, that small percent is what we're going to have to be dealing with. And again, keeping in mind that there is a vast diverse ecosystem out there. The birds that we love in our gardens and that we want in our gardens need the caterpillars and worms that are in there. So eradicating any one specific insect is never a good idea, right? That's a food source. That's a potential food source for a bird, and we never want to fully eradicate anything. Just manage, right? That is the perspective that we have going into managing these things. So simple tips on identifying bugs. What life cycle, just observing what life cycle that insect is in, right? We know that insects have the egg stage, the larvae stage, the adult stage, and one more that I'm forgetting. So just recognizing the different life stages of a pest will help you to determine what that pest is. 3 to 4 different stages. So when does it appear to feed? Is this a night visiting animal? Are they feeding mostly in the evenings? Are they feeding in the day? That will help you in identifying what it is, understanding what time of day it's feeding, what it's actually feeding on. What type of damage appeared on the plant, and what type of plant? All insects have different mouthpieces, right? Some are meant for chewing, some are meant for sucking, shredding, stinging. All of these different mouthpieces help us in identifying what the pest is. So really getting close and look at the damage on the leaf to understand what type of damage is being caused on what specific plant. A lot of specific plants are more susceptible to different pests. So being aware of what plant is being affected will help you in determining what insect is actually causing the problem. And some tips to identify disease. So symptoms would be spots, dead or dying tissue, fuzzy spores, bumps, and irregular coloration. These are just some of the different symptoms that your plant could be showing. And just being aware of the disease triangle. So in order to have a disease on a plant, you need a susceptible plant, right? It's very specific to what plant it is, a pathogen, obviously, and a favorable environment. So if you can control those three things, that will help you manage a specific pathogen. So knowing which plants are more susceptible, obviously, what pathogen it is, and the favorable environment. So if it really thrives in a moist area, maybe look at what kind of irrigation you're using, right? If you're using overhead sprinklers, that might make your plant more susceptible to a pathogen who prefers a moist leaf. So just being aware of that disease triangle. I really like just that idea of knowing that those three things are needed in order for a pathogen to live, right? And controlling obviously the plant and the environment is what we can do, and just being aware that there is sort of hope in that. And then we move on to nutrient deficiencies. So here I have an image from Grow Real Food on the Facebook page, and it really helps us to determine what different nutrients or minerals are lacking, and that is why that plant is sort of giving you that symptom. So understanding if it's new growth or old growth will help you determine which deficiency it is. Understanding if it is affecting the whole vein of the plant is probably an indicator if it's a soil issue, if the veining is affected. If it's just on the leaves or around the leaf margin, it's probably not a soil issue. And then the most common would be iron, and this would be an indicator for new growth that is yellow. And then magnesium would be pale green discoloration on older growth, so being aware of that. Zinc would be a pale green interveinal discoloration on new growth. Manganese would be old growth, and that would be pale green. All of these different deficiencies make themselves known in different ways, and that really will help us in diagnosing which one we are lacking. Natural forms of pest control would be predatory release, and this would be in an extreme case. I think most of us don't need to be purchasing, ladybug larvae to be distributed in our yards. Most of the time, these things can be managed a little bit easier and less costly. Physically removing, I had hornbeam worms last year, and I just plucked them off and fed them to my chickens, and it was an easy disposal. Spraying with a jet of water. If you have a hose nozzle that can really push that water out, that is even an effective way of getting rid of some pests. Covering with netting, obviously that's a great idea. A physical barrier and a homemade trunk or stem barrier. Depending on what your insect is, maybe you just need to cover the main stem at the bottom. Maybe that's the only issue that you need to be covering. Setting a decoy trap in the soil. It was mentioned that even putting a rotting potato in your soil and checking it, every couple days for wireworm is a great idea. It sort of traps it in that rotting potato. Remove infested crops, right? If you are hosting that infestation, that's obviously not going to help you. So removing a crop that's maybe gone too far is a great idea. Buying resistant varieties. If you have come to your wit's end on things and you have decided, I cannot deal with powdery mildew anymore, maybe look at what options are available to you locally that are resistant to that specific issue. Encourage diversity, right? We are probably very familiar with companion planting and that type of thing, and there is some sense to it in the fact that you are bringing in some good beneficial bugs. So be aware of what different plants will bring in bugs and birds, and remember, we're not fully eradicating anything. We are just sort of managing to a tolerable level. Natural forms of disease control would be to remove infested crops. Again, that's a great method. Buying resistant varieties. If it feels like we can't manage it, buying a resistant a plant would be a great idea. Allow proper airflow. If our plants are already stressed and crowded and not getting the adequate airflow, that would be making them more susceptible. Keep on your cleaning and maintenance of your tools and sanitize them regularly. This will definitely eliminate some of the spread of some of these diseases. And in the most extreme cases, you might need to be using a spray. So there are different sprays in the market, oils, soaps, sulfur, and BT sprays. The most extreme cases would need a chemical or a synthetic sort of spray. So be aware that these things are a little bit dangerous to use, right? Overspray can affect some of the surrounding plants and life in your garden. We can be killing beneficials if we're spraying at the wrong times. So just being aware that only in extreme cases we are to be using our sprays. Many pesticides used in control and problems for pests and weeds are also toxic to beneficial garden life, and they may even harm people, pets, salmon, and other wildlife. Just weighing the risk and reward, right? If you have gotten to the point where you need to use a synthetic spray, that is up to you, but just knowing that we want to manage that and limit that as much as possible. A method that was discussed in our class is called IPM, Integrated Pest Management, and I'll just read the explanation here. It helps to control garden pests, including insects, disease, and vertebrates, by effectively reducing problems using the least toxic method that sufficiently control the pest. This scientific and environmentally sensitive way of looking at pest management walks you through several techniques, if necessary, to safely minimize or eliminate the pest. Right? Just being aware that there are different ways to manage these issues really gives us the freedom to sort of explore the way that might suit us and our situation the best. So just know that there are different ways to do it. It doesn't always need to be a purchased chemical from the store. And again, just some cautions. Some bugs are better than no bugs, right? We are not wanting to create a sterile environment with no life, right? Life begets life. We want life in our gardens. And birds need caterpillars. So if we're eradicating a lot of these insects, our birds are going to go. They're going to go find another food source and another garden to live in. So just being aware of that. And most plant problems are caused by us. And this brings me back to the abiotic-biotic sort of difference, right? The abiotic definition was the environment, and that's usually caused by us, right? A lack of water, under-fertilizing or over-fertilizing, not providing that plant with what it needs in order to thrive. So most of this is in our control to manage. Well, that wraps up my talk on pests and disease. Like I said in all of my summaries, this is just the basics, just to sort of relay what I'm learning here with you. I really encourage you to seek out what's relative in your area, right? The bugs and the disease and the pressures that you're dealing with specifically, in order to fully understand, so that we can manage our gardens and in turn have a healthier garden in the end. So thank you for joining me. I appreciate you being here. Our next session is on pruning. Thanks for being here. Bye.